Bully revenge is one of the most popular tropes in manhwa. It's so common that finding a grounded fighting manhwa without it feels like a challenge. And honestly, I get why. A lot of people have experienced bullying at some point, so cheering for the underdog victim against the person who wronged them is quite easy. But here's the thing, after you've seen it once or twice, you've seen it all. The MC gets repeatedly brutalized, hits a turning point, and then comes back for revenge. Rinse and repeat. And it doesn't help that half the time, the characters have a personality of a wet mop, and the antagonists don't have a reason for what they're doing. Now, a lot of people treat these stories like fast food. You're not expecting anything mind-blowing, but you know exactly what you're getting into, and it's good enough. If that's you, fair enough. I'm not here to police what you're reading, that's Winter's job. However, personally, I'm getting burnt out, and from what I've seen online, I'm not the only one. Manhwa has so much potential as a medium, and I'd love to see something come along to shake things up and get wild. Think omniscient reader's viewpoint and the greatest estate developer for the whole isekai into a novel genre. That brings me to today's topic, Bones. I apologize for mispronouncing pretty much all of the names in the video. Written by Gun Lee and illustrated by Sunmin, Bones had an insane start. It won the 2023 Best Challenge contest and earned an official serialization on Naver Webtoon, which is the Korean side of Webtoon. Typically, if a series performs well there, it also gets an English translation, and according to the writer's Instagram, that was at least being discussed. However, it seems that never happened, possibly due to its age rating being changed from 15 and up to 18 and up. But even without an official translation, Bones still made waves, with discussions popping up on Reddit and people eagerly awaiting its serialization. I'm telling you all of this to really put into perspective just how much hype this series had, despite only having 3 chapters out. Now, time to answer the question, why? The world of Bones starts like many other manhwas. One day, gates opened on Earth, unleashing monsters, but at the same time, some people awakened their abilities and became hunters. Our protagonist, Kang Ji-hyung, is one of them. His ability? Regeneration, an S-rank power. But there's a catch. He doesn't have enhanced strength nor durability, just regeneration. And the process of healing often hurts more than the original injury. That turned him into a perfect punching bag for 3 S-rank awakened on a power trip. In the pre-serialization version, their names aren't mentioned, but in the current run, we know the leader is Teksu. Ji-hyung cannot even report them, as his ability erases all of the evidence, and even if he did, S-ranks get special privileges and protection from the government. The only reason he endures is for his mother, but on her birthday, things take a turn for the worse. His bullies coincidentally visit her restaurant, where Teksu flirts with her. She brushes him off and in the process accidentally knocks his phone over, breaking it. Teksu, of course, says it's no big deal, pays for his meal, and leaves to become a respected member of society. Which is what I would say if this wasn't a manhwa. Instead, Teksu slightly overreacts and impales Ji-hyung's mother with a dozen diamond spikes, landing her in the hospital. Blinded by rage, Ji-hyung confronts them, but Teksu doesn't see what the big deal is. He impales Ji-hyung and gets his goon to electrocute him for good measure. However, seeing that Ji-hyung refuses to give up, they decide to entrap him underground in a cocoon made of diamond spikes, laughing as they leave him to die, and challenging him to get out. Ji-hyung punches at the unbreakable walls, but it's no use. The air runs out, his lungs burn, and the pain is unbearable. And then he dies. But his ability won't let him stay dead. Over and over, he suffocates, revives, only to suffocate again. Stuck in an endless cycle of agony, he realizes how hopeless his situation is, until he remembers his mother. She is suffering too. If he gives up, she'll never wake up. So he keeps punching and punching and punching. 5 years pass. Teksu alongside his henchmen are known as charitable S-rank hunters. Real pillars of kindness. However, to put dick riding on pause, an interviewer questions Teksu about an unfortunate accident from years ago. Teksu, to no one's surprise of course, covered it up as an accident. Then something big crashes into the studio. A door flies straight at Teksu, but he blocks it with ease. Annoyed, he looks up to see what caused the commotion. But before he can process what is in front of him, he gets a Michelin-starred knuckle sandwich expressly delivered to his face. I got out. You see, while Ji-hyung was trapped on the ground, his regeneration was pushed beyond its limits, really working overtime to survive. Blood spilled, flesh ripped and bones shattered, and through it all, his body adapted. His entire form, except for half of his face, is now covered in a near-indestructible exoskeleton. Tetsu and his stooges try the same tricks, but this time the results are different. Lighting, useless. Ji-hyun made quick work of the caster. Earth entrapment, pointless. Another light work, no reaction. And diamond spikes, they stop him for about 2 seconds. After a short scrap, Ji-hyun moves to finish the job. Tetsu stares at him in horror. Why are you doing this to me? Ji-hyun removes the exo covering his face. Tetsu sees what he created, but before he gets an opportunity to beg for his life, Ji-hyun finishes what Tetsu started. We learn that before seeking revenge, Ji-hyun visited his mother, who remained in a vegetative state, but her survival wasn't a miracle, it was intentional. Shim Ji-yeon, head of Korea's Hunter Association. She was watching Ji-hyun ever since that incident, waiting for this very moment. Being the only S-rank healer in the world, only she has the power to save his mother's life. Not to mention all of this time, it was Ji-yeon keeping her alive. For reason for doing so, she needs an exterminator. Hunters have become way too powerful, even beyond the reach of nuclear weapons. They've also gotten way too efficient at hunting down monsters. And with the gates empty, they've started using them to wage wars. Korea can't stop Japan from invading because it would cause an all-out war. However, if, let's say, a monster appeared inside of a gate and gotten rid of them, well, there would be no issues. Workplace accident and all. If Ji-hyun agrees to beat that monster, she will save his mother. Then he has a fight against Japan's #1 hero in chapter 3 or something. That part doesn't matter for the rest of the video. The Bone's pre-serialization version wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. It set itself up for a massive power creep issue. Right off the bat, we are told that top-tier hunters are as strong as nuclear bombs. And by chapter 3, Ji-hyun is already no-dipping Japan's #1. And let's not forget, the 3 stooges were also S-rank. When you start at the top with an ability that makes the MC practically unkillable, it gets rid of the stakes and any meaningful progression. That was my biggest issue with this version. But despite that, I wanted to let them cook, for a couple of reasons. First was the fact that entire bully arc was introduced and resolved in 2 fucking chapters. That felt so refreshing on my first read. We wasted 0 time. Ji-hyun came, saw and conquered. Done, finished, moving on to bigger and better things. My second reason was the art was superb. And Ji-hyun's design is just so edgy that it circled back to being cool. And finally, the story gave me huge Fire Punch energy, and I wasn't alone in that. Fire Punch also had a strong start with some questionable moments, but I loved reading through it, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it. Alas, God hasn't gifted me with a foresight to prepare for what a shit show this was going to become. So let's go over some of the changes made and where the story stands now. First off, Ji-hyun no longer has regeneration. Instead, his ability is exoskeleton manifestation. He can cover his entire body in a hard exoskeleton, which disappears after, but leaves behind scars. It's still painful as hell, so at least that remained unchanged. The whole idea of his ability erasing evidence is gone too. Now the only reason the bullies get away with everything is that the government just couldn't give less shits. But here's the thing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but shouldn't Ji-hyun already be dead? His ability only activates after he's injured, but if a high-speed diamond brick smashes into a human skull, I don't think he can just walk it off. One thing I did like was the stooges were hunting at the gate right before Ji-hyun confronted them, instead of just doing nothing. However, the change I absolutely hated was how Ji-hyun evolved. Instead of Ji-hyun desperately fighting and punching solid diamond for 5 years while fading in and out of consciousness to get out, he was thrown into a blood gate, and what kept him alive wasn't his sheer will, but because of the evil monster mana inside, and possibly some kind of a devil guy. Blood gates are just gates with all kinds of nightmarish looking monsters inside of them. Later on we also find out that they're connected to hell itself. No one who entered one came back alive, which is why they're a big deal. Not only does all of that make his whole transformation less tragic, but it also loses that rawness it once had. Now, I was willing to overlook all that, but then they hit me with something I cannot accept. Remember how refreshing it was that the bully arc was resolved in 2 chapters? Well, Tetsu fucking lived, and of course, his one and only trait is that he wants to kill MC. Johnny! Rakia! Ji-yeon's look was also changed, and honestly, I don't understand the direction they were going for. Even without her introducing herself, you knew just from her design that she was an important figure, someone who knows how to run shit, and the almost sinister smile she wore gave both a sense of someone who knows they're in control, as well as uncertainty about their character. I guess now she looks more like a healer, since she comes across as a lot more innocent, but not in a million years would I guess that she's the head of Hunter Association. And if you think over time she'll start looking more the part, I mean, kinda? She makes a creepy face, but the only thing she does is screw Teksu. Oh, and she goes by Lee Jumin now.
I mean, sure, it's different, but maybe they still cooked something up.
We call that type of cooking food poisoning. The plot is lost in the sauce. So much happens, but at the same time, nothing happens. Ji-hyung is seen as a monster, so a super top dog shows up, kills him over and over again. The panels are in absolute chaos. Ji-hyung remembers he has a mom, and then he kills the guy. Then, a super duper top dog shows up, kills him over and over again. The panels are in absolute chaos. Ji-hyung remembers he has a mom, and then he kills the guy. And then, and only then, you get the point. Meanwhile, Teksu just goes around fighting and killing others with the title of the strongest in their respective country. That's it. New characters keep getting introduced because all the old ones get killed off. We get their backstories, but they're just dumped on us with no real build-up, like the author is going through a checklist. And the worst part, I like their designs. I wanted to see more of them, but nope. They only exist to either torment Ji-hyung before he kills them, or so that the author can suck Teksu off with how strong he is. As for the dialogue, well, the author seems to be competing with Vivzipop for the title of who can add more fucks in their story. The original plot of going after the hunters is also nowhere to be found after chapter 3. It's usually Ji-hyung the one being hunted instead of the other way around. We're like ants in a death spiral, continuously circling until we decide to drop the manhwa. Hey, editing fellas here. So, I am just now reading chapter 30, and it is quite a doozy to get through. So it turns out that Ji-hyung is actually the devil guy who is the administrator of hell, a pale or something like that, and he created this entire loop in which entire story takes place where it's everything destined to just circle back to him getting tortured, him becoming a monster, and him destroying the entire world. And because he lived for such a long time, you know, the eternal life thing, he made a daughter, which is Lee Jumin. And her motivation is to attempt to end her own and her father's life. She's also his apparently alter ego, as well as his daughter. But because she keeps trying to end her and her father's life, the old Ji-hyung, who is still not Pale, attempts to take the power of Pale for himself, turning into Pale. In short, I have no fucking clue what is going on anymore, man. I don't have anything else to say. I genuinely believe I've come to a conclusion that you can't analyze Bones. You can't expect character development or characters from Bones. You can only expect an art gallery, because art is amazing. That's all it has going for it. If you can just completely shut your brain off, you're honestly the only one who can enjoy it in its fullest potential. I genuinely believe Bones had the potential to bring something new, but instead it ended up feeding right into the boring, stale, and nonsensical. In short, if you want a tragic post-apocalyptic story with an MC that has powers, go read Mad. The pacing is immaculate, and the story really takes its time to develop both main and side characters. It's like if you turned Kaiju number 8 into Fire Punch-esque story. If you made it this far, I just want to thank you. And if you want to spoil me, feel free to subscribe, as well as like the video. Now if you'll excuse me, the local Jester is holding a performance that I need to catch.